Sleepovers have always been those special activities with friends and exist to have the purpose of a fun time. However, based on this story, it's clear that not all sleepovers end up being fun or exciting. This happened at my best friend's house a few years ago when we were still in middle school. For privacy reasons, I'll call her Megan. Megan was around my age and attended the same classes in school as me. Ever since then, we've become great friends where we mostly hung out just about every weekend. She was one of those friends who you could always count on and was just there to brighten your day. Anyway, this happened during winter break of 2018. Megan had invited me over to her house for a sleepover. Before I said yes, I had to get permission from my parents, and with them knowing Megan and I were best friends, they thankfully agreed. That night, my mom had drove me over to her house to drop me off. Megan had come from a very wealthy family, so she lived in a really nice house. You might as well consider it as a mansion. This would make the sleepover 10 times better, seeing as there would be more things to do. I got to her house with all of my clothes and utilities packed. Both Megan and her mom had greeted me, and we both went up to Megan's room where we watched a few movies and played some video games. About a couple hours into the stay, her mom had told us that she had been going out to dinner with a friend and wouldn't be back until late. Megan and I were both pretty mature for our age and told her we'd be fine until she got back. Her mom had given us $20 to order pizza, and with that, she went on her way. Not too long after, Megan had asked if I wanted to play hide and seek. Now, most people think that hide and seek is for younger children, but it comes back when you hit middle school. I agreed to it, and we had agreed that Megan would hide and I'd be the one seeking. Seeing as this house was huge, we decided we only play on the second floor to not make the game too hard. I gave her a good minute to hide while I said the all too common phrase, "Ready or not, here I come." Even though I was seeking on one floor, it was still pretty big with about 10 plus rooms to search. I start with Megan's room while looking under her bed, her closet, and even behind the door. However, she wasn't there, and I continue searching for her. I'd say I looked through several rooms by now, and that was when I noticed that one of the closets in the hallway had been slightly opened. I completely forgot about this as it was small and was a place most people wouldn't think to look. I casually walk over to the closet, and that's when I saw the glimpse of an eye peering in, staring right at me. At this point, I knew it was Megan, but I tried to make it seem like I didn't notice, as I wanted to give Megan a sort of scare when finding her. With that said, I opened the closet door, expecting to scare Megan, but instead saw this man staring back at me. His hair was a mess, and I saw craze straight through his eyes. But what really struck me the most was how he looked at me. It was almost as if he were guilty, as if he wasn't supposed to be caught. I scream at the top of my lungs as he runs past me down the stairs and out of the house. At that point, Megan had come to me and asked what was wrong, to which I told her that there was someone in the house and to call the cops. Thankfully, there was a police station down the road, so it didn't take long for an officer to arrive. After a thorough investigation, they had claimed that the man had probably found a way in due to the extreme weather. However, the man didn't get far. They had found him out in the backyard hiding behind one of the sheds. After all, it was snowing out and just needed someplace warm. Megan's parents decided to not press charges on him, but wanted a restraining order. Basically, he couldn't come near the house within 500 feet. The sleepover had been called off that night as my parents no longer felt comfortable. I remember my mom giving Megan and her family a bit of criticism, telling them how her mom could be so irresponsible leaving children alone. I wasn't invited back to their house again until my parents felt comfortable. Megan and I are still friends till this day and now work at a local supermarket. I'm still unsure as to what happened with that man, but I just hope he's getting the help he needs. Back in 2007, I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and had just joined a pretty particular punk band. We oftentimes would get small gigs throughout our city, performing at bars, restaurants, and even festivals. We never made it big, but our act was appealing enough that it got the attention of many locations. One of them was this widely popular club where hundreds of people attended, and we had gotten requested to perform there. Because it was a large club, we got paid a lot more than usual, and we weren't going to miss out on that opportunity. Long story short, we performed pretty well for a good hour, and it was then where we started to realize just how late it was. After all, it was approaching 2 a.m., and one of my buddies had offered us to crash at his place. It was short notice, but my house was pretty far, and his was only a few blocks away. On top of that, it would only be for the night, and he would take me home the next morning. In the end, it didn't really seem like I had a choice, so I agreed, and we all hop in his car and head out. We arrived to the house where he had offered us some booze to help us sleep better. For anyone who drinks, you know damn well that alcohol knocks you right out. That being said, I fall asleep on one of the guest beds, passing out almost instantly. Now, this bed I was in was small, which caused both of my feet to be hanging off of the bed. I'd say I slept for a good 3 hours or so before I woke up to feel something cold grab onto my right foot. At first I thought that it could have been a gust of cold air from the AC, but that checked out when I heard the words, "Hey, can you help me?" All of a sudden, the face of an older looking woman who I had never seen before peered her head out from under the bed. This was because there was a small lamp in the room, which enabled me to see her. She was not a pleasant looking woman. Her eyes were bloodshot and her hair was long and gray. Her mouth was draped open, exposing her crooked and missing teeth while looking at me. To be honest, she looked like a zombie, and seeing something like that in the dark is petrifying. At this point, I didn't know what to do. I was in that sort of shock phase where I just stared at this woman before coming to the realization of what was going on. After about 10 seconds of waking up to reality, I jumped out of bed screaming. This of course woke up the other band members who came to my aid, where I told them what had happened. Still recovering from the sheer shock and panic, I was practically yelling while crying my eyes out in fear. Turns out, our lead band member who was letting us stay the night had briefly knew about the woman. She would sometimes be outside his neighborhood by the bus stop asking for food, as she was indeed homeless. Once in a while, he'd show her his hospitality by bringing her food he had made, as he didn't like seeing her that way. Why or how she had broken into his house remains a mystery, but needless to say, the cops were called. All the while, she's bawling her eyes out and claims she just wanted a place to stay where she thought she was welcome. She was arrested and charged with breaking and entering, and would be sent to some psychiatric facility in the city. We of course couldn't help but feel sympathy for her, but when you enter someone's private home, it's a whole nother story. We later found out a few days later that this wasn't the first time she's done something like this. There had been 2 other reports of breaking and entering, where one of them decided to press charges. She was in prison for 4 years before she was released for good behavior. It still shocks me to my core, as this is something I would have never thought would happen. Fast forward till today, I always remember to have my blanket over my feet when I sleep. This happened to a couple friends and I in our senior year of high school back in 2014. Back in high school, my friends and I were that dynamic trio you'd commonly see walking around campus that many people talk about. Anyway, this took place during the final months of high school, and because of this, we decided to do a sleepover to just relive our fun times. It was a Saturday night, and at one point during the sleepover, we had just finished a movie not knowing what else to do. Now, this was also around the time where social media had began to blow up. One of the social media apps that started gaining popularity quickly was Instagram, which eventually led to major trends. One of these trends was playing with an ouija board in an attempt to contact spirits and other entities. There had been thousands of these videos uploaded to YouTube and Instagram about people attempting to connect with spirits. In fact, the trend got so popular that there were even tutorials on how to actually make contact. Being the naive and dumb teenagers we were, we had all looked at each other just knowing we had to do it. Thankfully, the parents of the friend hosting the sleepover just so happened to own a really old ouija board that had been passed down from her family for years. She had claimed that it was 100% authentic and most likely worked seeing how old it was. If anything, this was a plus as it would only add to the creepiness. We did some research online and found an article that described how to correctly set up an ouija board. This involved some candles and a dark, quiet room. Once we got the supplies, we set the board down, lit the candles, and turned off all of the lights. For the first few seconds, nothing had happened, but that was until we felt the planchette slowly move to yes. We all look at each other, trying to figure out which one of us was moving it. However, we all denied and said that it was moving by itself. For some reason, one of my friends asked if it can somehow prove that there was something with us. All of a sudden, the craziest thing happens when we hear the sound of a toy piano being played in the other room. This instantly gave us a good scare, to which I then asked it a more serious question. Doing this was probably the stupidest decision I've ever made, and I still regret it till this day. I stupidly asked the board when I would die. With my hands on the planchette, it slowly moves to the letters TENSECONDS. 10 seconds. At this point, we all start staring at each other while laughing, thinking that one of us had to have done that. However, just about 15 seconds or so later, my phone starts ringing with the label emergency call. It was from my dad. I picked it up and was met with him screaming on the other end saying she's dead. She, meaning my mom. Apparently, they were on their way home from a dinner party when the car swerved off and got shoved into a boat trailer. My mom died instantly on impact while my dad only suffered from minor bruises. This incident has left me devastated for years, as I truly believe that this wasn't some coincidence.